The Nanjing Massacre, the Holocaust you've never heard about. 756k people already watched this? Damn, okay.
The Nanjing Massacre. One of history's darkest, cruelest episodes. You might not consider this history's worst war crime, but it's
Do you not
likely
watch
the
this? Wait,
worst
why?
you've never
Wait, you've seen this? Is this a bad vid? Am I gonna get banned for watching this? Skeletons of victims, they're standing on that?
heard of. Often compared to the Holocaust, in 1937, Nanjing, China's capital, was hell on earth. During the Japanese takeover, approximately
This
200,000
was
to
literally
300,000
right before the actual Holocaust. Literally like 2-3 years before.
people were killed, and
40,000 to 200,000, 20,000?
tens of thousands of women were sexually assaulted. These are big numbers, so vast that our brains might not be able to fully comprehend the gravity of it. So let's
weak
try
stomach click off,
another
now I'm fine.
perspective. This will get graphic, so feel free to skip ahead to this time if you'd like. Iris Chang, author of a best-selling book on the Nanjing Massacre, writes, one historian estimated that if the dead from Nanjing were to link hands, they would stretch from Nanjing to the city of Hangzhou, spanning a distance of some 200 miles. Their bodies would fill 2,500 railroad cars.
Oh my God.
Stacked on top of each other, these bodies would reach the height of a 74-story building.
Holy
Such
shit.
destruction and death was carried out in an unbelievably short amount of time. Within only 3 weeks, Nanjing went from one of China's greatest literary, artistic, and political centers to a city ravaged, its people brutally
my
murdered.
God. Bro, look at the difference. Literally
amount of
week to
time.
week.
Within only 3 weeks, Nanjing went from one of China's greatest
This is incredible, bro. Like, look how, like, high functioning the society is to
literary,
what?
artistic, and political centers to a city ravaged, its people brutally
God
murdered,
damn.
viewed by the Japanese military as pigs for slaughter. Women were sexually assaulted. No woman was considered too old, and of course, none too young. W.H. Auden wrote in his poem In Time of War, and maps can really point to places where life is evil now. Nanjing, Dachau. To really understand the evil that occurred, we must take a closer look at the Nanjing Massacre. What exactly happened during the 3 darkest weeks in Nanjing's history, and why, despite such
Hold on.
horror, did
You're telling me in 1937, this lasted for 3 weeks and they ended up killing 200,000 people? And that happened to the city in 3 weeks?
not ignite the fury of the world? We all rightfully mourn and remember the Holocaust, but very few know of Nanjing. And finally, what is China planning? Because this year, they're determined to shake things up. The first part, focused on the Nanjing Massacre, will be the hardest part to listen to. There will be no graphic images, but if you can handle the descriptions, I strongly recommend sticking through. If not, I'll
What's up,
give a
Rob?
timestamp later to skip ahead to when the explicit sections start. Let's talk about what happened to the people of Nanjing and what Japanese soldiers told themselves as they slaughtered.
Mind you, the people who said to do this were never... I don't even know what that word is. Because they were royalty? Royalty? What is that word, bro? Prisoned?
A city.
Oh, prisoned. Wait, oh. Oh, bro, I think I kind of understand what's happening here. Oh my god. Okay.
Nanjing was the capital of nationalist China, and the Japanese intended to crush it. When the Japanese army reached the city after conquering Shanghai, they faced almost no resistance. Most of the defending soldiers were barely trained and surrendered easily, lured by promises of fair treatment. Then they were separated into groups of 100 or 2, led away, and shot. With the soldiers executed, nothing stood between the Japanese invaders and the people of Nanjing.
Wow.
The city was now at the mercy of an army that would show none. If you're uncomfortable with accounts of torture or rape, please skip ahead to this timestamp.
What, are they gonna show
as we
it?
discuss how
Wait, I can't show this. Or is this allowed for me to show? It's on YouTube, I can react to it, right?
ordinary people,
Okay.
Japanese soldiers, can commit such heinous acts. To kill 200,000 people in 3 weeks is almost
That's
unimaginable.
crazy.
One Japanese war reporter wrote, "Blood splattered everywhere. The chilling atmosphere made one's hair stand on end and limbs tremble with fear. I stood there at a total loss and did not know what to do." In district after district, men judged of military age were rounded up in batches, marched to the riverbanks or vacant lots, and machine gunned in rows. The wounded were
Holy
finished
shit.
with bayonets, and the bodies were burned or pushed into the Yangtze River to hasten disposal. For days, elders told their children,
Wait,
the
hold
Yangtze
on.
River.
I have a question. I feel like we know so much about so many horrific events that happened in history. How is it just me? Why am I finding out about this for the first time? Like actually, like this actually sounds way worse than most things that I've ever heard about that are like heinous acts that humans have done. How am I just seeing this?
Ran red. In the midst of this slaughter, killing was sometimes turned into a contest. Japanese newspapers reported competitions
for
to see who
sport?
could kill 100 Chinese first. One such contest ended with a score of 106 to 105.
What does that
These
even
were
mean? What does that even mean? The score was 106 people killed to 105. Oh my god.
human lives, yet they were reduced to nothing more than tally marks on a scoreboard. And death did not always come swiftly. Some accounts describe victims being tortured, set on fire, or buried up to their waists and then torn apart by dogs. Survival
God.
also did not mean safety.
Oh my
For
God.
many, especially women, it meant entering a different kind of hell. One Japanese soldier recalled, "Women suffered most. No matter how young or old, they all could not escape the fate
Okay,
of being
hold on.
sexually
What is it? We gotta find
assaulted.
out the reason behind
Women's
this.
suffering was devastating and deeply humiliating. Former Japanese soldier Azuma Shiro described how soldiers perpetrated these acts. At
You know what
first,
happened?
we used
Wait.
words like
Do
pikan,
you know what the Croatians did in World War II? No, I do not. I do not. I do not.
Pi means hip. Kankan means look. Pi kankan means let's see a woman open up her legs. After a while, we'd
my
say,
God.
"It's my day to take a bath," and take turns sexually assaulting. Crimes like these happened everywhere and at all hours. Chinese women were not seen as human. Azuma says, "Perhaps when we were sexually assaulting her, we looked at her as a woman, but when we killed her, we just thought of
Oh
her
my
as something
God.
like a pig." I also want to note that not all victims were women. Chinese men were also sexually assaulted and forced into humiliating acts by laughing Japanese soldiers. There are many such accounts of cruelty. I don't intend to dwell on these horrors, but it's important to comprehend the depth of suffering during this time. One Japanese soldier, Nakatomi, confessed, "Few know that soldiers impaled babies on bayonets and tossed them still alive into pots of boiling."
They turned Serbian men, women, and children into soap. Holy am I just actually oblivious to the world? Like, am I actually just lost?
Water. They raped women from the ages of 12 to 80 and then killed them when they could no longer satisfy sexual requirements. I beheaded
shit.
people, starved them to death, burned them, and buried them alive. Over 200 in all. It is terrible that I could turn into an animal and do these things. There are really no words to
I
explain.
don't understand like the rationale right here from these Japanese soldiers, bro. Cause like, go back 20 seconds. I heard what they said, bro. I heard what they said.
On bayonets and tossed them still
Funeral
alive
soldiers
into
impaled
pots of
babies on
boiling
oh my god, and toss them in still alive into pots of boiling water?
They raped women from the ages of 12 to 80 and then killed them when they could no longer satisfy sexual requirements. I beheaded people, starved them to death, burned them, and buried them alive. Over 200 in all. It is terrible that I could turn into an animal and do these things. There are really no words to explain what I was doing.
Like, how are you so, like, guilty and resentful of what you just did right there, bro? Like, I don't understand. Like, I want to know what caused them to do this in the
truly
first
a
place.
devil. This was a time of war, but such cruelty is hard to reconcile with modern perceptions of Japanese
Like, it's
culture.
one thing, but no, dude. Modern society and historical events that happened literally are just night and day, and it's so hard to ever think that someone like that Japanese people could do this. And also it's like going to war is one thing, killing people in war is one thing, right? Whatever I just heard right there in the last 20 seconds that's not normal behavior from someone who's like just doing their job. That is a different sort of like sadistic fucking mannerisms.
Often seen as polite and respectful, which raises the question, does war bring out the worst in people as it did in Nanjing? And what factors could make that happen? There are three things.
No. War is different. Killing people is different. Torturing people and doing what I just heard right there are two very, very different things. And I still stand by that.
It's worth exploring here when it comes to the Japanese. Bushido, the way of the samurai, and its influence on Japanese men. The indoctrination of troops from an early age, and the Japanese military environment during the war. Let's start with Bushido.
The way of the samurai
class in Japan first emerged during the Heian period. Samurais followed Bushido, their way of the warrior. Honor, loyalty,
Hold on, let's see.
Samurais followed Bushido.
The 7 virtues of the Bushido: compassion, politeness, heroic courage, honor, integrity, duty and loyalty, honesty and sincerity.
Their way of the warrior. Honor, loyalty, and self-sacrifice were central values. For the samurai, the greatest honor was to die serving their lord. If they failed, they'd commit
Back when the Japanese were evil, it was sad. I mean, I don't think it was the entire. It wasn't the whole country of Japan. It was just the people going to war.
Painfully disemboweling themselves in front of witnesses. Why is Bushido relevant? At first, Bushido values were only shared among the samurai, but when the Kamakura shogunate came to power in the 12th century, the samurai started taking up leadership roles, and Bushido values began spreading through the government and society. Over time, Bushido wasn't just for warriors anymore. It became a moral guide for all young men across Japan. We can see the influence of Bushido in the World War II surrender rates. The Allies surrendered at a rate of 1 per 3 dead, Japanese soldiers at 1 per 120 dead. Or consider the kamikaze pilots who willingly sacrificed themselves for the emperor. These values, coupled with a strict military hierarchy, then became twisted and weaponized in Nanjing through what scholar Tanaka Yuki calls the transfer of oppression. Superiors in the Japanese military often subjected their soldiers to intense humiliation, abuse, and punishments. This was not just done if soldiers made mistakes, but often used as a routine part of training.
Okay,
beating soldiers.
So that right there explains to me that it was a bunch of projection. Whatever the Japanese soldiers were going through from their officials and whoever was in charge of them, like, just, I feel like the same stuff that, not like exactly the same stuff, but definitely not okay stuff was happening to the Japanese soldiers, that they just felt like they needed to take it out on people that had less power than them in that situation.
And making them take part in degrading tasks like washing the underwear of their superiors was thought to instill loyalty in them and to toughen them up. This brutal environment may have contributed to their increased cruelty. Powerless to resist in the military, soldiers may have internalized their resentment and fear. Then, when given power over defenseless civilians, they unleashed cruelty by repeating the same
projection. That's what it is. I was saying
endured. Japanese troops were also indoctrinated to believe Chinese lives were worthless. It started young. One historian recounts how a Japanese schoolboy burst into tears when told to dissect a frog, and in response his teacher yelled, "Why are you crying about 1,000
Tell me the channel
frog?
so
When
I
you
can
grow up,
subscribe
you'll
to
have
research
kill
it."
Oh
one."
my god. This dude. A-I-N-E. Aini? Something like that.
100, 200. When they grew old enough to be on the battlefield, new soldiers still often hesitated when ordered to kill. One private recalls none of the recruits volunteering to make the first kill when commanded by their superior. The superior then lost his temper, called them cowards, and said, "Not one of you is fit to call yourself a Japanese soldier." The superior told them that Chinese people must not be seen as human. Their lives were beneath a cat or a dog. Then he would call out names, and recruits would have no choice but to kill the Chinese at their feet. In addition to the constant dehumanization of Chinese people, something else to consider is the
genuinely what even transformed that individual that was instilling all these values onto the Japanese, like, citizens. What even caused him to, like, become like that?
Japanese soldiers viewed their own lives.
Somebody needs to sit down and have an interview with that guy.
Mashiro recalls the saying, "Loyalty is heavier than a mountain, and our life is lighter than a feather." The greatest honor a Japanese soldier could achieve during war was to come back dead. This emphasis on loyalty
Oh my
and duty
God.
to the emperor
Bro,
reduced individual
nah, they
Japanese
were
soldiers
so
to
cooked back in the
cogs in
day.
a system. If their own lives held no meaning, why should they care or value the lives of the enemy? When you add it all up, Bushido, harsh internal discipline, indoctrination, and a disregard for one's own life, each of these factors played a part in the city's massacre. Now, I want to turn our attention to the aftermath, or rather, the lack of it. Why do so few people know about the Nanjing massacre? The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki,
Wait, she said, why
where
do so many people
hundreds of
know?
thousands of civilians died, are widely discussed, as they should be. These large-scale wartime atrocities remain ever-present reminders of the horrors of war, but the massacre in Nanjing is almost never mentioned. And the reason for this is not so straightforward, because, you see, after World War II, Japan wanted to keep quiet about the massacre. That's expected, but China also stayed low about it. Probably heard of the saying, history is written by the victors, but sometimes history isn't written down at all. The Nanjing massacre was almost forgotten until one woman decided she could not let the world
Okay,
forget.
this is interesting. So Japan, for obvious reasons, did not want to make this known, right? Which makes sense. You just did probably the worst thing ever in your country's history. Why does China not need to bring this to attention? How does that make any sense? Part 2, the buried along with the truth.
The biggest thing that prevented the Nanjing massacre from getting the attention it deserved is politics. And like all topics involving politics,
Was China scared that Japan would attack again? And repeat the same process? Because, to be honest, 200,000 people gone in 3 weeks, that does
this
reduce your
gets
population
messy.
a lot.
Let's take a look at Japan first. Japan, fearing damage to its reputation and international relations, downplays
This is a
and
very
at times
sad
outright
thing, but can you
denies the
GIP
massacre
send me
even
the channel
happened,
name?
which is crazy. Unlike Germany, where admitting the
I already sent it to
Holocaust
you,
is
man.
illegal for history teachers,
It's
in
literally
Japan,
4 letters,
textbooks
A-I
often minimize
and I.
or straight up remove references to Nanjing. And when the Nanjing massacre is brought up in Japan, it's often referred to as the Nanjing incident. Textbook censorship means many Japanese may never have learned about these events in school. And when
Wow.
war veterans like Azuma Shiro speak out about their time in Nanjing, they receive death threats. Azuma publicly
Okay,
apologized
this
for
is
his
something that I think is super, like, bad. Like, it's just terrible for the actual, like, whole society of Japan, bro. I think something that's so good about most countries is they actually instill learning about their own country's, like, history just so they don't repeat the same things they did, like the bad things they did. I feel like this is really bad on Japan, not being able to teach your future generations about the horror that was committed, even if it was. I get it, like, you don't want to, like, give people the wrong idea of Japan, but it is your country, bro. Like,
during the Nanjing massacre, and afterwards he was forced to move to a tiny village outside Kyoto with his wife for safety. As for the government, well, there are several instances where the government has denied the massacre ever occurring. In 1990, politician Ishihara Shintaro stated, "People say that the Japanese made a Holocaust in Nanjing, but that is not true. It is a story made up by the Chinese. It has tarnished the image of
Wow.
Japan, but it is a lie." Unfortunately,
Oh my
such
God.
dismissals of the event continue even today. Just earlier this year,
what
in
are we
July-
talking about, bro? Okay, so what? So what? We're just gonna act like that's just a bunch of AI back in 1937? Like we didn't
A
bomb?
member of the far-right Sunset
entire
Law
country?
Party outright denied the existence of the Nanjing massacre.
日本軍が中国大陸にね侵略していったというのは嘘です。
It is a lie that the Japanese military invaded the Chinese mainland without cause.
違います。
This is a recent video too. It was a response to continuous acts of terrorism and provocations from the other side.
中国側がどんどんテロ工作をしてくるから自衛戦争として
Japan saw its actions as a form of
どん
self-defense.
どん行くわけですよ。だからその中で
The advance into Nanjing happened in the context of that
だ
conflict.
から満州じゃないや南京のね侵攻とかでそこで大虐殺
It is said that the Nanjing massacre took place.
だというけど大虐殺
However, for Japan, there was no strategic reason to carry out such a massacre. Holy fucking cow. There was absolutely no reason. Wait, what did they say for?
だというけど大虐殺する意味がない30万人
Absolutely no purpose for the Japanese military to kill 300,000
意味
people.
がない日本がでも教科書にはそう書いて
This
the
was taught to us in many school books.
There are multiple historical records of the massacre, testimonies from Chinese victims, even Japan's own war veterans. To continue to dismiss the massacre in the modern day and age baffles me. Thankfully, efforts to raise awareness about war atrocities like the Nanjing Massacre and Unit 731, the Human Experimentation Unit, have occurred in Japan. Often done through local exhibitions, visitors are invited to share their thoughts after attending. I want to share with you what one Japanese schoolboy wrote in the 1990s after seeing one such exhibition. From the time I was in elementary school, I'd heard stories from people who experienced bombing raids during the Pacific War. But even though we hear from various sources about our being victims of war, there is almost no talk about Japan's being an assailant. It is important to tell the story from both sides, especially to us in the generation that does not know war. The words of those who did experience it are most valuable. That is why it would be good to increase the places where these words could be heard. Dismissal of these events often comes from the government, and consequently ignorance persists among the public. However, this young boy's words demonstrate a desire to learn and confront the truth. Taking accountability is not what harms your reputation. Constant denial is.
Facts.
This explains in part Japan's silence on the massacre.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to hurt your country's progress in the long term if you're not going to acknowledge the fact that that shit did happen in your country's history.
What about the side of the victim? Why did China not speak out? Again, the answer is politics. Immediately after Japan's surrender, China was grappling with its own internal conflicts, a civil war between the nationalists and the communists. Political instability during this time
China's history in this period of time
later, when China's political landscape stabilized, a different set of priorities came into play. In 1972, China and Japan normalized trade relations, and China formally dropped its claims to World War II reparations from Japan. This was both a moral and pragmatic choice. On the moral front, Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai repeatedly emphasized that this was both a gesture of goodwill between the Chinese and the Japanese, and because no amount of money could pay off the suffering that had occurred during the war. On the pragmatic front, this decision helped China and Japan develop a closer trade relationship. Japan had become one of China's most important economic lifelines in the 1970s and 80s, increasing the flow of trade, economic aid, loans, technology, and information between the two countries played a crucial role in developing China's economy. And if the political agendas from Japan and China weren't enough, US policy also played a part in burying the Nanjing Massacre. To keep this brief after World War II, because...
Okay, now the US is getting involved. Now we're getting involved, and now we're about to see some shit about why the US is actually a piece of, just a piece of shit back in the day.
Of the Cold War, the US wanted to contain...
I forgive them because they aren't the same people. Almost everyone from then is dead. I mean, that's every country, bro. Every country at some point, for the most part, not every country, but for the most part, most countries have done really, really bad things in their history, and, you know, it's different now.
And needed Japan as a capitalist ally in Asia. So Japan didn't face the same pressure for owning up to their war crimes as Germany did. This leniency allowed Japan to avoid full responsibility then, and to some degree, even now. So, yeah. Because of politics, memories of the massacre slowly faded, until one woman refused to let it be forgotten. That woman was Iris Cheng. It's hard to talk about the Nanjing Massacre without mentioning her name, because her book sold 500,000 copies and had her dubbed the best young historian of her time and brought the event back into the public spotlight. Cheng's book weaved together numerous first-hand accounts and testimonies, and her work opened the world's eyes to a chapter of history that had almost been forgotten. Cheng was invited to the White House by Hillary Clinton and featured on US talk shows like Good Morning America and Nightline to give talks about the massacre. Cheng had written in her book after going to a conference on Nanjing and witnessing the depth of its horror, being panicked that the event would be reduced to a footnote in history unless someone forced the world to remember. Cheng was not born in China. She was Chinese
I'm gonna be
American.
honest, this woman deserves like a Nobel Peace Prize for that. 100%. She literally brought back one of the most horrific events in two countries' history that people have forgotten about, and brought that back into the media, especially in the US as well.
But she had heard of the massacre.
I would know my country been through insane racism, but no one talks about it. It's generally only talked about in history classes. Yeah, I do know South Africa is pretty bad when it comes to a lot of stuff. South Africa is bad when it comes to a lot of stuff, like involving racism. I'm pretty sure we also saw that in the World Cup, because a lot of South African fans did not care about South Africa winning at all, and it was completely due to political reasons, right? Nobel Peace Prize is for science? No, it's not. Nobel Peace Prize is not just for science. You can give Nobel Peace Prizes to a whole bunch of stuff: activism, science, other stuff like that.
since childhood, with her parents telling her stories about
But like,
their
wait, I think Rob could actually answer this, right? Like, Rob, what is the whole reason why South African people don't actually want to see South Africa do well in most things around the world?
event. Neither of my parents witnessed it, but as young children they had heard the stories, and these were passed down to me. The Japanese, I learned, sliced babies not just in half, but in thirds and fourths, they said. The Yangtze River ran red with blood for days. Her parents'
Wow.
stories sowed the seeds for her work on
Wait,
the
were they
Nancy Massacre.
throwing the bodies inside the river? If that actually, no, Mike, that's
This first
horrific.
encounter was also heavily covered by Chinese media as news reports highlighted the power of memories to connect generations across time, even across different
Yes.
countries and
God damn.
cultures. Cheng's unique identity as Chinese American allowed her to bridge not
Oh,
only
she's
the
also
gap between
American.
China and the rest of the world, but to also form a link between mainland Chinese and
I
the
want to know,
Chinese diaspora.
like, genuinely, I want to, like, I guess ask people this eventually. How many Chinese people do you think actually know about this part of history? How many Japanese people do you think actually know about this part of their history?
Cheng's work cemented
It can't be that many. Like, genuinely can't be that many.
the Nanjing Massacre as a major international trauma, and in 2004 she was in the middle
Because most of the politicians and people at power are corrupt. The previous president generally stole money from the people, and most or the main politicians are corrupt. Right. But what is the whole racism thing, and like why does that impact why people hated South Africa, like even winning one game in the World Cup? Like that's what I'm wondering
of
about.
working on another book about the Bataan
Because I also saw this TikTok of this dude from South Africa, right? And he was in New York, I'm pretty sure, or somewhere, or in America for the World Cup, and he was shocked to be walking around in the middle of the day, just with his phone out, like just recording himself, and nobody was trying to rob him or something. Like that's crazy to me. Like it's not even in the middle of the night. Like in the middle of the day, he was just having like a great time, and he was surprised by that. And he was also walking around at nighttime to like some sort of gas station or something, and this truck was driving by. I don't know if you guys saw this. This truck was driving by, and he was shocked at how slow the truck was moving without people trying to open the back of the truck or like take the driver out of the truck to rob that as well. Like that's crazy,
March
bro.
when she tragically ended her life. Her statue now stands at the entrance of the Nanjing
Wait,
Massacre Memorial
what?
Chinese diaspora. Cheng's work cemented the Nanjing Massacre as a major international trauma, and in 2004 she was in the middle of working on another book about the Bataan Death March when she tragically ended her life.
Oh my god. Yo, imagine how much she was actually like being threatened by that. 100%. She was probably receiving so many death threats and just so much hate for her actually trying to make a change, bro.
Her statue now stands at the entrance of the
What a
Nanjing
fucking
Massacre
goat.
Memorial Hall in China, and every visitor who goes in to pay their respects has to pass by her first. Cheng's book sparked a wave of media attention around the Nanjing Massacre, but perhaps what we're seeing now is the largest movement yet. This
Okay.
year, China is releasing two major blockbuster films set during World War II.
Oh,
One
shit, okay.
on the Nanjing Massacre, another on Unit 731,
Wait, that's fire.
the infamous Japanese unit that performed human experiments on Chinese prisoners.
This is a different thing?
31, the infamous Japanese unit that performed human experiments on Chinese prisoners. Both
Oh,
movies
this was it.
center on Japanese war atrocities
Probably because the guy was in a nice area. It's different areas. If you hold your phone out, it will get stolen fast. That's crazy.
and the theme of China's
That's crazy.
national suffering.
But it's not surprising because I've seen
why
that
are
shit
these two
not just in South Africa. Like I've seen it in like India and Pakistan. Even when we reacted to the videos of Italy and France and all those places, like I guess it
films
happens
being
everywhere.
released now? And what does that reveal?
Which is
about
actually kind of
China's
crazy to think
current
about. Like, you will get your stuff stolen in places in America, but I feel like it's very, very like unlikely, especially like your phone and stuff, because I feel like everyone has phones.
strategy.
Part 3: New and Old Memories.
The release of 731 and Dead to Rights, covering some of the
Are these
darkest
movies only coming out in Asia, or in China, or what? In Japan or whatever? Or is it gonna come out here too? Because I want to watch this. I genuinely like think that this is one of the craziest things I've ever heard of.
parts of China's experiences in the war is no coincidence. There are three big reasons. One, this year is a special year. It marks the 80th anniversary of World War II
Wow,
ending.
okay.
Two, geopolitical tensions are escalating. And three, this is the throwback for the OGs. Film is a form of soft power.
True.
First, the 80th anniversary. It's a
I
land
got mad gangsters in my family. High key, America is much more dangerous than South Africa, by my opinion. South Africa is a decent country, but Asia is obviously better. Okay. I don't know about any of that, but all I know is that you don't have any gangsters in your family, Rob. You're sweet
mark
as
my
sugar,
experience
bro.
since World War II. And it's interesting because East Asian countries all tend to remember this time differently. For China, it means victory over Japan. For Korea, it's liberation from Japanese oppression. And for Japan, it's honoring the victims in Hiroshima and Nagasaki from the atomic bombing. These diverging perspectives of the war are, according to Stanford sociologist Shin Ki-wook, at the root of the many underlying political
You know what this
tensions.
is, bro? At the end of the day, people in politics and people in war and all that will never view their own actions or their own thinking as wrong. Never. And I think even till this day, I might be wrong about this, I still don't think that both sides believe that they were in the wrong. Like, it's hard to say that China was ever in the wrong for that entire accident. Obviously, no one should say that unless, like, you're some sort of Japanese soldier that's still living till this day. That's like, oh, like, you don't know what we went through. But it's so hard for me to believe that, like, the Japanese media till this day, because we saw that video from that dude that was pretty recent, still believes that whatever happened didn't even happen in the first place. Or even if something did happen, it was all provoked by the Chinese military or the Chinese media.
between China, Korea, and Japan. And these
Unit 731 movie released in theaters last year. It's available to buy digital. Oh, it already came out. Wait, when this video come out? Came out 10 months ago. Wait, I have to watch that then. I have to watch that.
tensions are only going to rise as this date gets closer. China sees the 80th anniversary as a day to remember past suffering and triumph, and a time to strengthen national identity. A series of campaigns are planned to emphasize patriotism and encourage historical reflection, with this all culminating in a grand military parade. Geopolitically, increasing tensions with the US, Japan, and Taiwan make it vital for China's leadership to shore up public support. That means preparing the nation for tougher foreign policy stances, like a greater willingness to use military force or threats, implementing economic sanctions, trade restrictions, or embargoes. Releasing World War II themed films reinforces patriotism, unity, and a readiness to defend Chinese interests if challenged.
That's fair.
Through film, China can rally the public, push its narrative internationally,
I mean, I think the
and
strongest
remind
thing
citizens of past
is just
foreign
teaching
aggression. The stories
people
these films
like,
tell and the emotions
what
they
happened.
evoke help build a shared identity and actively shape
If anything,
collective memory.
if anything,
you remember
I feel like China probably encouraged every single person that lives in the country to go watch the film. Not even just to have a strong opinion about it or whatever, but it's just like to just know, you know what I'm saying? Because the more you know, the stronger your country is together. People in my school generally get me because I'm so good and spread the word of the peak Asians. I have zero attraction to anyone else. Okay. My wife's boyfriend says hi to kids. Yo, appreciate that, Travis. What's up, bro?
earlier, one of the Japanese
Say hi to
soldiers,
him, bro.
Osmo, described the term pikankan, used among soldiers during acts of sexual assault. When I came across that term during my research, I suddenly flashed back to a scene from a Chinese wartime drama I'd watched as a kid, where a Japanese soldier gleefully descended upon a helpless woman, repeating pikankan.
Realistically, you'd almost never find a girl prettier than the person that's talking in this video in South Africa. That's just complete cap. Like, do we not know who Tyla is? Like, are we living under a rock, bro?
And pikankan. This isn't a real memory, of course, but seeing the word pikankan triggered that thought and the feeling of fear. In ways like this, media is a powerful tool in shaping our collective memory. Films like these also have soft power value abroad. For non-Chinese, they may be the first exposure to events
It's also good for educating more people around the world in different countries about what happened too.
Atrocities, feeling relieved that the movie is over, and then seeing the words based on true events. With these films, China is able to prompt an awareness of their historical trauma to foreigners, and perhaps also foster an understanding in them when it comes to China's current perspective. Films are a potent form of government messaging, used by all countries, not just China. But for China's younger generation who are not affected or remember World War II in the same way older generations do, pop culture retellings are often the most effective way in passing on
That's
memories
facts.
of such events. Think about Chang, who grew up all the way on the other side of the world in a different culture, and the impact she still made because she was moved by the stories her parents shared. That curiosity changed the way the world remembered. As for me, I actually only
Iris
thought of
Chang.
making this video because my grandparents were super keen on watching Dead to Rights, the
Wow.
movie about the Nanjing massacre. My family is actually from Nanjing, so I knew
If
the
anyone ever
movie
says
would mean
media
a lot to
is
them.
harmful,
and of course this topic also
they're
means
right,
a lot to me.
but it
as
does a
well.
lot
In
more
Chang's
good than
book,
bad.
She came to the conclusion that Japan's behavior during World War II was less a product of dangerous people than of a dangerous government.
It's also such a
In
strong
vulnerable
title, bro. Like really, Iris Chang. Like, you could have named this anything, but the fact that she named it this, the book, really makes you want to know about it. Like, it's just genius what she did here, bro.
culture in dangerous times.
Like, she actually might be one of the most influential people I've ever heard about in my entire life.
To sell dangerous rationalizations to those whose human instincts told them otherwise. And I agree. I want to make it clear that this video is not about promoting hate. I wanted to break down the event, confront the cruelty that occurred, and still find empathy in understanding how things escalated so far. In the first part of this video, we learnt about what happened in Nanjing and how Japanese ethical codes like Bushido, harsh military environments, and indoctrination allowed for brutality to fester and to be carried out. In the second part, we
Also, one more thing before this video ends. I still think that the tactics that the military, Japanese military, was using on their own soldiers to promote their whole like mentality and think like, oh, like we gotta go do this in war, we gotta go do this in war. There's no chance in my mind that that stuff still isn't happening to this day. You can't get that. You can't change my mind
But
about that.
why the
And not just in Japan too. 100% in other countries too. They still probably think like this. It's just they're not in a position anymore to go act on those certain things
went
like they did
unnoticed,
were able to back in
examining the motives
1937.
of Japan, China,
Of course, it's because the Asian power flowed through her veins when she wrote that. Okay,
and to some degree the US. And in the last part, we see China reviving and shaping memories with blockbuster films, symbolizing both historical trauma and rising tensions today. The Nanjing Massacre is an undeniable part of history, and though it is confronting to remember, we should not forget. As Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel warned, to forget a Holocaust is to kill twice. If you found this video
Yo, what a saying. To forget a Holocaust is to kill twice. Yeah, that's aura.
informative, please subscribe. It's free and it covers all sorts of topics.
Nah,
on each
actually,
page.
deadass, I'm subscribing. This is probably one of the best videos I've ever seen.